Welcome to Movies in the Making. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at the 1971 crime drama film The French Connection, released by 20th Century Fox, now 20th Century Studios, and directed by William Friedkin. Here, we will dive deep into the story of the production of this film. In loving memory of Gene Hackman, the film was the very first time Hackman ever won the Academy Award for Best Actor, so we shall be discussing how the film came to be. We will even feature an Actor's Corner segment detailing the life of Hackman, including how he became the actor we all know him as. So, sit back and enjoy the show. You are all in for a procedural ride. The film rights to the book The French Connection, originally written by Robin Moore, initially belonged to National General Pictures, which had acquired them from the book's producer. However, after a lengthy period of unsuccessful script development and the studio's eventual closure, the project stalled for nearly 10 months. Once a suitable script was finally developed, the production team then pitched it to 20th Century Fox. Dick Zanuck and David Brown, who were running the studio at the time, were impressed with the script and gave the green light for the film. Production officially began in November 1970, with principal photography taking around 65 days and a budget of $2.2 million, worth over $17 million today. William Friedkin became involved in the film after being introduced to the project by its producer, who had already acquired the rights to the book. Having a background in documentary filmmaking and live television, Friedkin had a keen interest in directing a thriller. After struggling through multiple failed screenplays, Friedkin connected with the film's key collaborators, including Eddie Egan and Sonny Grosso, which reignited the project. His previous experience with documentaries helped shape his vision for the film's gritty, realistic style. Friedkin was ultimately drawn to the project not only because of the compelling story, but also because he felt that it offered him the opportunity to truly control the medium, a rare opportunity in his early career. Friedkin prepared for the film by spending nearly a year shadowing real-life detectives Egan and Grosso in New York's high-crime areas, including Bedford-Stuyvesant and the 28th Precinct. He took extensive notes and recorded conversations to understand their personalities and methods. Through his time with them, he observed their tough, no-nonsense attitudes, knowing that despite their dedication, the work often felt ineffective and frustrating. This shaped his approach to the film, emphasizing the futility of their efforts. Friedkin also delved into the morally ambiguous line between law enforcement and criminals, exploring how both cops and smugglers, like the film's antagonist Charnier, viewed their actions with a sense of purpose, even if their outcomes were often disappointing. This led him to portray Charnier not as a villain but as a businessman with virtues, while Doyle, the cop, was depicted as a brutal and morally flawed character, blending the complexities of good and evil, which he felt were not as clearly defined as society often made them out to be. In 1971, Ernest R. Tidyman, a former newspaperman and pulp novelist, had a banner year, marking his debut with the publication of his 1970 novel Shaft and co-writing its film adaptation, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, 1971. Tidyman, a 42-year-old ex-New York Times reporter from Cleveland, caught the attention of the French Connection's producer Philip D'Antoni and Friedkin after they read an early version of Shaft. They were impressed with his gritty storytelling, though D'Antoni was surprised to find that Tidyman, who wrote about a black private detective, was himself white. He was described by his widow as a grizzly bear with a fierce temper and was shaped in his career by his rough upbringing, where his father, a police reporter, pushed him into the world of journalism. When it came to writing the film, Tidyman combined street smarts with his own literary knowledge, using his sharp writing skills as a licensed weapon against worthy adversaries. Gene Hackman's casting in The French Connection stemmed from his raw, intense screen presence, particularly his ability to channel anger, which became a defining element of his career. Hackman's portrayal of Doyle, a morally complex and often enraged cop, resonated with the turbulent social climate of the early 1970s, appealing to both the anti-war counterculture and the backlash against it. His performance, infused with a simmering rage, helped redefine the action movie genre, offering a stark contrast to the polished Manson-y idols of old Hollywood. This role not only won Hackman's first Academy Award, but also set the stage for many of his subsequent, similarly fiery roles, such as that of Lex Luthor in Superman, Warner Bros., 1978, and Superman 2, Warner Bros., 1980. Fernando Rey was cast in The French Connection somewhat by accident, as Friedkin initially had a different actor in mind for the role of French drug smuggler Alain Charnier. Friedkin had envisioned Francisco Rabal for the part, but Rabal was unavailable, and Rey, whom Friedkin had noticed in Louis Buñuel's Belle de Jour, was suggested by casting director Rob Weiner. However, when Rey arrived in New York, he did not match the rough, Corsican look Friedkin had anticipated. Rey was dressed immaculately with a goatee, and despite being Spanish rather than French, he was ultimately cast after the originally preferred actor was ruled out. Though Rey's casting did not align with Friedkin's initial vision, the actor's performance ultimately became a key part of the film's success, and Friedkin humorously reflected on how sometimes filmmaking requires flexibility and luck. Owen Roizman became the cinematographer for the film after Friedkin saw his work on a low-budget short film Stop, Warner Bros., 1970. Friedkin previously fired the original cinematographer and was impressed by Roizman's ability to create realistic, street-level photography and approached him for the film. Roizman had a background in TV commercials and had worked on several other projects, including the film The Taking of Pelham 123, United Artists, 1974. He works closely with Friedkin to achieve a gritty, realistic style, incorporating careful camera movements to enhance the film's tense atmosphere. Roizman's innovative approach helped shape the iconic 6-minute car chase scene, utilizing multiple cameras and unique filming techniques. His work on The French Connection was pivotal in defining the film's visual style and cemented his status as a sought-after cinematographer. The film achieved its documentary-like aesthetic through a combination of handheld cinematography, location shooting, and a focus on realistic, unpolished actors. Friedkin had a background in documentary filmmaking and applied his induced documentary style to the film, aiming to capture the unpredictability of real life. He rehearsed scenes without the camera, only briefing the camera crew on actors' movements, allowing for a spontaneous action and an organic feel to the shots. Friedkin drew inspiration from Costa-Gavras' film Zed, Valoria Films, 1969, which utilized the documentary style and a fictional narrative, influencing his approach to The French Connection. This technique made the film feel as if the camera was simply capturing the events as they unfolded, contributing to its gritty, street-level realism. The French Connection showcases a gritty, decaying New York City, which is reflected in its filming locations. Shot primarily in the early 70s, the film captures abandoned, grime-covered buildings, derelict cars, crumbling warehouses, and trash-filled lots, portraying a version of New York City that has since been replaced by modern urban developments. After opening a brief scene in Marseille, the film moves to Brooklyn, where much of the action takes place. Notably, scenes were filmed outside the Oasis Bar and Grill on 914 Broadway, at the border of Bushwick and Bed-Stuy, which has since been converted into a Chinese restaurant. Other iconic locations like the Loews Broadway Theater, which was torn down in 1988, are also featured in chase scenes that reflect the neighborhood's decline. The film takes us through various New York streets, including a dramatic chase along Bushwick Avenue and Marcus Garvey Boulevard, where detectives pursue a suspect through a vacant lot, now the site of Woodhull Hospital. The geography of the chase is creatively altered for cinematic effect, jumping from Brooklyn to East Harlem, where the filmmakers utilize distinctive but long-gone buildings. The film also utilizes a fictionalized version of the Copacabana nightclub, leading to a scene through Times Square, where recognizable landmarks such as the Circus Cinema and Translux Theater once stood. Today, these areas have been changed significantly, with many of the iconic buildings replaced by chains like Sbarro's and Radio Shack. The detectives also make stops in locations like Ratner's, a kosher restaurant on Delancey Street, which has since been replaced by a Sleepy store. Other spots like Grand Street in Little Italy have remained more or less unchanged, with long-standing establishments such as Oliva Dairy and Piemonte Ravioli Co. still in business today. Yet, in the areas that have transformed, the French Connection captures a snapshot of a New York that has largely disappeared, with some of its key locations now lost to time, replaced by modern businesses and residential developments. Friedkin took highly dangerous and unorthodox risks to capture the iconic car chase scene in the film. It was filmed mostly in just one take on real New York streets with no traffic permits. Friedkin's guerrilla-style approach saw him pushing driver Bill Hickman to drive at speeds up to 90 miles per hour through spotlights, creating a near-accident environment. While the car chase was meticulously planned with the actors, including the woman with a baby carriage almost hit by the car, Friedkin neglected to inform Hickman about the details, adding to the tension. The crew lacked sufficient traffic control, relying instead on off-duty cops to help manage the chaos, though a real collision with another vehicle made it into the final cut. These dangerous conditions contributed to the sequence's visceral intensity, though it raises questions about whether the chase's authenticity was enhanced by real-life danger or could have been achieved with safer techniques. Gerald B. Greenberg became the editor for the film after a notable start in the film industry, having apprenticed on Elia Kazan's America, Warner Brothers 1963, and later working on Bonnie and Clyde, Warner Brothers 1967, with Dede Allen, where he edited some of the iconic shootout scenes. His work on The French Connection, particularly editing for the famous car chase, earned him an Academy Award. Greenberg's innovative approach to the editing, especially in the unplanned high-risk chase scenes, helped bring the intensity of the film to life. His career flourished after his success as he worked with directors such as Francis Ford Coppola, Sidney Lumet, Michael Cimino, and even William Friedkin himself, becoming a prominent figure in the American New Wave movement. Don Ellis became the composer for the film in 1971, marking a significant point of his career. Although relatively unknown to mainstream soundtrack fans at the time, Ellis was an innovative jazz artist who had pioneered unconventional time signatures and harmonies, leading to his own big band during the 1960s and 70s. His cutting-edge approach to music caught the attention of director William Friedkin, who sought a unique score for the film. Ellis's experimental, dissonant jazz score perfectly complemented the film's gritty, unconventional style and became a standout of 70s crime scores. The film launched Ellis's career in film scoring, though tragically, he passed away at the age of 44 in 1978. The French Connection remains his most notable film score, blending avant-garde techniques with accessible themes to match the film's tense, raw atmosphere. As of the 4th of March 2025, The French Connection has a 97% critics rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 94 out of 100 critics rating on Metacritic, a 7.7 rating on IMDb, and a 4.0 rating on Letterboxd. The film's budget was $2.2 million, and it grossed almost $51 million following its initial release date of the 7th of October 1971, making it the fourth highest-grossing film of 1971. $51 million at the time is now $400 million today. The film received 5 Academy Awards, one for Best Picture, one for Best Director to Friedkin, one for Best Actor to Hackman, one for Best Adapted Screenplay to Tiedemann, and one for Best Editing to Greenberg. It also received nominations for 3 other categories, one for Best Supporting Actor to Roy Scheider, one for Best Cinematography to Owen Roizman, and one for Best Sound to Christopher Newman and Theodore Soderbergh. In 2005, the film was chosen by the American Library of Congress to be preserved for the National Film Registry as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The French Connection revolutionized the police procedural genre by shifting the focus from traditional cop conventions, such as the tough guy dialogue and gunplay, to the relentless pursuit at the heart of detective work. Friedkin emphasized a unique form of chase that became both the narrative and aesthetic backbone of the film, using long takes, overlapping dialogue, and gritty realism to create a sense of immersion. Instead of relying on interviews, profiling, or direct confrontations with criminals, the film's procedural elements are subtly embedded with its visual and auditory style. The use of real locations, often captured in handheld shots, and Don Ellis' avant-garde jazz score intensify the slow-paced but tension-filled chase sequences. This approach, combined with the absence of traditional detective tropes like deep criminal backstories or extensive dialogue, helped the film stand out as a groundbreaking and stylistically innovative take on the genre. Its focus on pursuit, both in terms of narrative and aesthetic, redefined this subgenre and influenced countless films that followed. One version of The French Connection streaming in the US had been altered by removing a 6-second scene that featured a racial slur used by Gene Hackman's character Doyle. This change, likely made by Disney after acquiring the film in 2019 by purchasing its studio, has sparked controversy. Critics argue that removing the slur fundamentally alters the film, as Doyle's racism is a key aspect of his character. The deleted scene originally made Doyle's prejudices clear, reinforcing the film's critique of policing and the systematic racism underlying the drug trade. Without this moment, Doyle's character becomes more ambiguous, undermining the film's original subtext and blurring the line between his rough cop persona and overt racism. The cut drew accusations of corporate censorship, and some critics suggested that it diminished the impact, which historically addressed racism in a direct and uncomfortable way. Actor's Corner. Gene Hackman had a rough and troubled childhood that played a big role in shaping his later life. Born in 1930 in California, USA, he was raised by an alcoholic mother and a violent father who abandoned him when he was just 13 years old. His mother, Anna, struggled with alcoholism and tragically died in a house fire in 1962. After his father left, Hackman lived with various relatives before settling with his maternal grandmother in Illinois. As a teenager, Hackman got into trouble, committing petty crimes and getting into physical confrontations. He joined the Marines at 16 by lying about his age, but his temper and rebellious nature led to his discharge. Hackman's fiery personality and quick anger earned him the nickname Vesuvius on set in Hollywood, a reputation he carried throughout his career. After his service at the Marines, he moved to New York to pursue acting, inspired by the tough actor James Cagney. Struggling to make a living, Hackman considered quitting but persevered, eventually forming a close friendship with Dustin Hoffman. Hackman's first significant role came in Lilith, Columbia Pictures 1964, but it was his performance in Bonnie and Clyde that earned him an Oscar nomination and solidified his career. By the 70s, Hackman was firmly established as a leading man. Gene Hackman retired from acting in 2004 after his final role in Welcome to Mooseport, 20th Century Fox 2004. Citing health concerns as the primary reason for his decision. During a 2009 interview, he revealed that a stress test in New York led his doctor to advise him against continuing work that could put stress on his heart. Hackman also mentioned that the physical toll his time in New York had taken on him, describing it as a cockroach time. While he had not formally announced his retirement, he made it clear in 2008 that he no longer wanted to act, saying he could not return unless he could do so under very specific conditions, like working from home. After retiring, Hackman focused on writing, painting, and enjoying a quieter life with his wife Betsy in Santa Fe, New Mexico, USA. Gene Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and his pet dog were all found dead in their Santa Fe home. The bodies were discovered in separate rooms and appeared to have been dead for some time. Preliminary findings showed no signs of external trauma. An investigation revealed that Hackman's pacemaker stopped functioning 10 days before his body was found, with the last recorded event on the 17th of February 2025. While initial speculation suggested a possible gas leak, further investigation ruled it out, and there were no signs of carbon monoxide exposure. Although foul play was initially not suspected, the deaths were later deemed suspicious, prompting continued investigation. Several celebrities tributed to Hackman, including Morgan Freeman, as part of the 97th Academy Awards ceremony on the 2nd of March 2025. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to stay updated on all things movies in the making. Let us know in the comments what you think of the French Connection, or if you have any favorite moments from that film we did not touch upon, or what films you would like to hear covered by this channel. Also be sure to check out our community page, where we announce what films to be talked about by this channel each week. New posts arrive every Friday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time on Movies in the Making, where we will be talking about Snowpiercer, DJ Entertainment 2013, and more films to follow along the way. Tune in for more Movies in the Making as we uncover the stories behind cinema's most unforgettable films. This has been Jason Scotchmer, film enthusiast and passionate about the art.